Namaste and welcome to Daily News Simplified, the what, why, and how of newspaper reading.
Now we would be covering the Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper of 26th of October 2018, and the news that would be covered today is given on the screen, and the timestamp for the same is given in the description and the comment section given below. Now we continue with the analysis of questions that were asked in the mains examination of 2018, and the question that we would be focusing upon today is from GS paper 2. And the question that we would be focusing upon today is on India-Israel relations. And this question was asked in GS paper 2 within the section International Relations. Now the first aspect that you need to understand is why was a question on India-Israel relations asked in the mains examination of 2018. Now India-Israel relations have been continuously in the news from 2017 to 2018, wherein the first reason became that Prime Minister Narendra Modi became the first Prime Minister of India to visit Israel. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited the country of Israel in July of 2017. And the second reason as to why Israel was constantly in the news was because of the Jerusalem issue, wherein what had happened was that the United States decided to move its embassy in Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Now this decision of the United States was supported by Israel but was heavily criticized by the Arab countries and European countries. And with regards to this, a resolution was moved in the United Nations General Assembly with regards to the political future of the city of Jerusalem, wherein the city of Jerusalem is claimed both by Israel and by Palestine. And during the voting on the Jerusalem issue in the United Nations General Assembly, India sided with Palestine and not Israel. And this became a major issue due to which India-Israel relations was constantly in the news. And the third and the final reason as to why India-Israel relations continue to be in the news was that the Prime Minister of Israel visited India in February of 2018. And these three current events became the major reason as to why India-Israel relations were constantly in the news for the past 1 year, and thereby became relevant with regards to your civil services examination paper, wherein a question was asked in the prelims of 2018, which had asked the term two-state solution is sometimes mentioned in the news in the context of the affairs of, and the correct answer to this question would be B, Israel. Now this question was asked in the context of current events of international importance, and what had happened was that the United States moved its embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. And the international importance of this move was that it violated the two-state solution, wherein the Jerusalem issue was a bilateral dispute between Israel and Palestine. And this shifting of the embassy of the United States from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem violated the two-state solution. Now this question also gives an important aspect, wherein questions which are asked in the prelims examination also provide cues as to which topic is important for preparation for your mains examination, wherein questions on Israel was asked both in the prelims and in the mains examination. Now after this, the second aspect that you need to understand is what is the context of the question. When the question asks, India's relations with Israel have of late acquired a depth and diversity which cannot be rolled back. Now the first context of this question is very straightforward, wherein it asks about India's relationship with Israel. Now the second context of this question are the words of late, wherein the main focus of the answer for this question should be on the past 1 year. The third aspect is of depth and diversity, and the fourth aspect that it cannot be rolled back. Now assuming that you already understand the context 1 and 2, what the question means by context number 3 is of depth and diversity in India-Israel relationship, wherein what used to happen earlier was that India used to import weapons from Israel. But what has happened of late in India-Israel relationship is that India and Israel are now co-developing or co-producing defense weapons and equipments. The second aspect of depth and diversity was that India's relationship with Israel were being balanced with India's relationship with Palestine. However, what happened in the past 1 year was that India started the policy of de-hyphenation, where under the policy of de-hyphenation, India said that it would not allow the Israel-Palestine conflict affect its relationship with Israel or with Palestine. Now apart from this, there were other aspects of depth and diversity in India-Israel relationship. However, hopefully you have gotten a basic understanding as to what the question meant by India-Israel relationship acquiring a depth and diversity of late. And with regards to the last context of this question, that this depth and diversity cannot be rolled back, what you had to do was provide a discussion, and therefore you needed to provide both pros and cons of this statement, wherein you can highlight that even though that India and Israel have decided to co-develop or co-produce defense equipments and weapons, it is still in the early development stage. While with regards to the second aspect of policy of dehyphenation, what happened during the Jerusalem issue was that India had to take a position between Israel and Palestine, and during the voting in the United Nations General Assembly, India took the position of siding with Palestine. And with this, you could have provided points that even though India and Israel relationship have acquired depth and diversity, there are certain fears that it can be rolled back. However, even after stating this, what you needed to also do was to end on a positive note in the conclusion of this answer. And therefore, by providing various aspects of the depth and diversity in India Israel relationship, the fear of how it can be rolled back, try to conclude on a positive note, whereby India Israel relationships have acquired a depth and diversity which cannot be rolled back. So, now hopefully, with this, you've understood the context of this question. And now, the third and the final aspect that you need to understand is how to prepare for such questions. Wherein, first, if you take a look at Learning from Daily News Simplified or the DNS videos, India Israel relationship, especially within the context of the depth and diversity in India Israel relationship, such as in defense and strategic partnership, science and tech, policy of dehyphenation, was covered in the DNS of 12th January. After that, the issue of Jerusalem, the policy of dehyphenation, was again covered in the Daily News Simplified of 16th January, wherein the Daily News Simplified of 1st February, one aspect that was mentioned was that the dehyphenation policy of India with regards to India-Israel relationship was important for your mains examination, wherein questions with regards to Israel was asked both in prelims and in mains examination. And after this, India's relationship with Israel was covered multiple times within the DNS videos, such as on 7th February, 14th February, and on other dates. Because as was mentioned earlier, India-Israel relationship was constantly in the news because of the previously mentioned three reasons. And now after this, India-Israel relationship was also comprehensively covered in the Focus magazine. Now the visit of the Israeli Prime Minister was covered in the February edition of the Focus magazine, where it was during Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Israel in 2017 that India's relationship was upgraded to a strategic partnership with Israel. And as you also know, this visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi became the first visit by an Indian Prime Minister to Israel. Now the Focus magazine gives various sections on India-Israel relationship and then provides a comprehensive understanding of various subtopics of that section, such as in the section Emerging Areas of Cooperation between India and Israel. It provides comprehensive coverage with regards to 5-year joint work plan between India and Israel, the Technological Innovation Fund. And apart from that, each bilateral relationship which is covered in the Focus magazine, special focus is provided on economic cooperation, connectivity cooperation, defense and security cooperation, science and tech cooperation, among other fields of cooperation between India and any other country. Wherein this section in the Focus magazine with regards to India-Israel relationship provides various contexts with regards to economic cooperation, connectivity cooperation, cooperation in the field of security between India and Israel, cooperation in the field of culture, apart from a simplified coverage of the Israel-Palestine issue, especially with regards to the policy of dehyphenation, wherein this coverage of the Israel-Palestinian issue in the February edition of the Focus magazine, it mentions the two-state solution, wherein this aspect of the two-state solution was asked in the prelims examination that was held in June of 2018. And therefore, this comprehensive coverage of India-Israel relationship in the February edition of the Focus magazine would have allowed you to answer the question both in the prelims and in the mains examination. And apart from this, India-Israel relationship was also provided within the QIP booklets. Now QIP or the Quality Improvement Program is provided prior to the mains examination and contains the important topic on every major subject such as international relation, economics, polity and governance that are required to be understood just prior to your mains examination. And the QIP booklet on international relations contained a comprehensive coverage of the India-Israel relationship. So now hopefully up till here you've also understood on how DNS, Focus magazine and the QIP program can also help you in preparing for your civil service examination paper. And so now with this, let us move on to the first article. Now we have taken this article from the editorial page on page 6. Now what this article talks about is to decentralize the sludge management system in India. Now this article talks about a very specific study that was conducted by the Center for Science and Environment with regards to sludge management in the state of Uttar Pradesh. However, we would be covering this article from a pan-India perspective for your UPSC examination. Now, the first aspect that you need to understand is what is sludge management. Now, sludge is the residue that accumulates in sewage treatment plants, sewage drains, and therefore sewage sludge management means the efficient disposal of sludge. Now, the second aspect that you need to understand is why is sludge management required in India. Now, according to the article, the UN report of 2015 had said that 65,000 tons of untreated feces is introduced in the environment in India on an annual basis. And apart from this, according to the study by the Center for Science and Environment in the state of Uttar Pradesh, about 87% of fecal sludge is expelled from toilet in urban areas in Uttar Pradesh is also untreated. And the last reason as to why sludge management is required in India is because fecal sludge is being discharged into rivers through drains. It is also being discharged into open lands, and apart from being discharged, also into wetlands. So now hopefully up till here you understood as to what is sludge management, wherein sludge is a residue that accumulates in sewage treatment plants, sewage drains, and therefore sludge management is the efficient disposal of sludge. And apart from this, you also understand as to why sludge management is required in India, wherein the UN report of 2015 had said that 65,000 tons of untreated fecal matter is introduced in the Indian environment on an annual basis. And apart from this, a recent study by the Center for Science and Environment has said that 87% of the fecal sludge from urban areas in Uttar Pradesh is currently untreated, and this fecal sludge is being discharged into rivers through drains, being kept in open land, and apart from being discharged into wetlands, and therefore have a major negative impact on the environment in India. And now after this, let us understand as to what can be done to ensure an efficient sludge management system in India. Now the first recommendation given by the author is to build large sewage treatment plants for cities and towns that lay near the bank of a river. The second recommendation given by the author is to map the flow of waste streams for each individual cities. What this means that if you consider the example of the city of Delhi, now what the author is recommending is that every stream that flows into the river Yamuna that carries the waste from the city of Delhi should be mapped, and after mapping these waste streams, large sewage plants should be formed in the city of Delhi so as to treat the sludge waste. The third recommendation given by the author is to link housing sewage drains directly to sewage treatment plants. Now, what is generally happening in major cities is that the sewage drains that flow out of residential area generally end up draining either into the rivers or into open lands, and therefore the author is recommending is to link the residential sewage drains directly to a sewage treatment plant. Now, the fourth recommendation given by the author is to ensure the abolition of manual scavenging and employ mechanized operations. The fifth point highlighted by the author is to form an interdepartmental task force which can identify land to build small treatment system for sludge. Now the author is recommending this because of the recent study by the Center for Science and Environment. It has shown that cities like Varanasi, Allahabad and Aligarh only have a 10 to 30% efficiency in the collection of sludge. And that is why it is required to first map the flow of waste streams for each cities and then form sewage treatment plants to treat this sludge. And the sixth and the final reason given by the author is to target the sustainable goal number 6, wherein the sustainable goal number 6 is of clean water and sanitation. And according to the author, it is by having a proper sludge management system in India that India can try to achieve the sustainable goal number 6 of providing clean water and sanitation to its citizens by the year 2030. So now hopefully you've understood the various recommendations as given by the author for efficient sludge management system. Now let us understand as to where this article and this explanation would be placed in your UPSC syllabus. Now it would first be placed in GS paper 2 within the section Social Justice, and within the subsection Issues relating to development and management of social sector relating to health, and more specifically sanitation. And apart from this, it would also be placed in GS paper 3 within the section Environment, and within the subsection Environmental Pollution and Degradation, and more specifically with regards to pollution from sludge. Now a question was asked in GS paper 3 in the mains examination of 2018, which had asked what are the impediments in disposing huge quantities of discarded solid waste which are continuously being generated. How do we remove safely the toxic waste that have been accumulating in a habitable environment? Now similar question for practice is what are the impediments in disposing the huge quantities of sewage waste which is continuously being generated? How do we safely remove the sludge waste that has been accumulating in our habitable environment, such as rivers, open lands, etc.? And you can try to answer this question with the help of the article and the explanation given in this section. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now we have taken this article from page 16. Now what we need to understand from this article is about the static concept of provisioning. And we'll try to understand this concept from the perspective of your upcoming prelims examination of 2019. Now you already understand that banks undertake both deposit and lending operations. And one of the aspects of these lending operations is the provision of loans. But what sometimes happens is that these loans are not repaid and thereby become non-performing assets or bad loans. And so when a loan becomes a non-performing asset or a bad loan, so now the bank which has taken the loss from the non-performing asset has to ensure that this loss is covered from other sources. So in simple terms, provisioning means that banks have to set aside an amount in order to meet these future anticipated losses. So what banks in India do is that out of the profits that they make, they have to set aside a certain percentage of amount as a provisioning requirement, and the percentage of amount that needs to be set aside is done as per the RBI norms. Now if you take the example of the Yes Bank from this article, what had happened was that the NPA ratio was targeted to be at 1.35%. However, the actual NPA ratio for this quarter for Yes Bank was at 1.60%, and therefore there was an increase in the NPA ratio, which caused an increase in the provisioning requirement for Yes Bank. And this increase in the provisioning requirement for Yes Bank had to be taken out of the profit that Yes Bank made from other sources. And this led to a decrease in the final profit figures for Yes Bank for this quarter. So now hopefully up till here you've understood that an increase in non-performing asset or bad loans leads to an increase in the provisioning requirement. And apart from this, you also understand that an increase in the provisioning requirement for a bank decreases the final profit figures for that bank. And now the last aspect that you need to understand is that the provisioning requirement as per the norm of the Reserve Bank of India is considered as a prudential regulation norm, wherein in simple banking terms, the word prudential means of a controlled risk through adequate capital requirement. Now question for your practice is consider the following statement with regards to provisioning. Now provisioning as a concept within the section economics is extremely relevant with regards to your prelims examination of 2019, since this concept has been constantly in the news but is yet to be asked in the prelims examination. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now we've taken this article from page 5. Now what has happened is that the central government has announced two schemes to promote higher education research in India. And what we'll try to understand from this article for your civil service examination are the various features of both the scheme. The first scheme being Impress and the second scheme being SPARC. Now before starting and understanding the various features from the perspective of your prelims examination, what we'll do first is understand on how government initiatives and government schemes are asked within the prelims exam. So if you take a look at the prelims examination paper of 2018, a question was asked on the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, wherein the first aspect that this question asked was the implementing agency or the ministry of the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana. The second aspect that it asked was the purpose of the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana. And the third aspect that it asked was a unique feature with regards to the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana. Now the correct answer to this question is C, 2 and 3, wherein the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana is the flagship scheme of the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship. Now moving forward, if you take a look at the prelims examination paper of 2017, wherein this paper had asked the various objectives of the National Nutrition Mission, wherein the correct answer to this question is A, 1 and 2. Apart from this, in this question, the implementing agency of the National Career Service was asked, and in addition to the purpose of the National Career Service. In addition, a question was asked as to the purpose of the Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, wherein the purpose of the Unnat Bharat Abhiyan is to connect institutions of higher education with local communities. And lastly, if you take a look at the prelims examination paper of 2016, it had asked the purpose of the Uday scheme, which was to provide financial turnaround revival of power distribution companies. Apart from this, it asked for the purpose of the Rashtriya Gramin Abhiyan, and the correct answer to this question is C, to eradicate the practice of manual scavenging. And apart from this, the 2016 paper had also asked a question on Stand Up India scheme in terms of its purpose and in terms of one of its implementing agency, where the correct answer to this question is C, both 1 and 2. Moving forward, it also asked a question on the purpose of the mission Indradhanush, wherein the purpose of the mission Indradhanush is for the immunization of children and pregnant women. And apart from this, it had also asked the purpose of the SWIM initiative of the Government of India, wherein it intends to provide affordable and quality education for the citizens for free. Now, these are some of the questions that have been asked in the prelims examination within the past 3 years on various initiatives and schemes of the Government of India, wherein the main aspects that have been asked is the purpose of the scheme, second, the implementing agency, and lastly, one of the unique features of the scheme. And by understanding these three purviews of any government schemes, you would be able to answer any question in the 2019 prelims examination on government schemes and government initiatives. So now let us first understand about the IMPRESS scheme. Now under the IMPRESS scheme, 1500 research projects will be awarded for 2 years. And these research projects would be based on social science research within the field of higher education. Now this IMPRESS scheme would be implemented by the Indian Council of Social Science and Research. Now there are three main objectives of the IMPRESS scheme. The first objective is to identify and fund research proposals within the field of social science. And these research proposals would largely be based on the topics of governance and society. The second broad objective of the scheme is that it would provide opportunity to researchers in central universities, state universities, and to any other institution within India. And therefore, you should remember that the IMPRESS scheme is open to every institution in India, which includes research institutions which are funded by the Indian Council of Social Science and Research. So now hopefully you understood the three main features of the IMPRESS scheme that are required to be understood for your prelims examination. So now let us understand about the SPARC scheme. Now the SPARC scheme aims at improving the research ecosystem of India's higher educational institution, and this scheme would ensure improvement by facilitating academic and research collaboration between Indian institutions and the best institutions in the world. Now this collaboration between Indian institutions and the best institutions in the world would be guided to solve national and international problems. And this collaboration would be based on a set of 5 thrust areas. First being fundamental research, the second being emergent areas of impact, third being convergence, fourth being action oriented research, and the fifth being innovation driven. Now, apart from this, what you should remember about the SPARC scheme is that IIT Kharagpur is the national coordinating institute to implement the SPARC program. So, now hopefully, you've understood the main features of the SPARC scheme for preparation for your prelims examination. Now, apart from being relevant with regards to your prelims examination, both the IMPRESS and the SPARC scheme are also relevant with regards to your mains examination within GS Paper 2, within the section Social Justice, and within the subsection Issues relating to Development Management relating to education. Now, there are two questions for practice, the first being on the IMPRESS scheme and the second on the SPARC program. And the correct answer to both of these questions would be given in the end section of this video. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now we have taken this article from page 5. Now what this article talks about is the launch of the Operation Digital Board. Now this Operation Digital Board is based on an earlier program called Operation Blackboard, which was launched during the 1980s. And it was launched in January of 2018 by the Central Advisory Board of Education. And this Operation Digital Board would be undertaken jointly by the Centre, the State, CSIR, and the community. And this Operation Digital Board is being launched to improve the quality of school education. Now these are the 4 main features that you need to understand about Operation Digital Board with regards to your upcoming prelims examination of 2019. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now I have taken this article from page 1. Now what has happened is that the Madras High Court has upheld the disqualification of 18 legislatures within Tamil Nadu under the anti-defection law. Now this decision to disqualify these MLAs were taken under the 10th schedule by the Speaker of the Tamil Nadu Assembly. So what we'll try to understand from this article is about anti-defection under the 10th schedule. So now let us understand the disqualification of members of parliament and state legislative assemblies on grounds of defection under the 10th schedule. Now the first reason for disqualification under 10th schedule would be that if the MP or the MLA has voluntarily given up his membership of the political party. Now the second reason is that let's say a voting has been going on in the state legislative assembly or the parliament, and a political party A has asked its member to vote yes on either a bill or a resolution. However, if a member of this party either votes no, or if that member abstains from voting, meaning that person does not vote, and then this MP or MLA can be disqualified on grounds of defection under the 10th schedule. Now there is one exception to this rule. So let's say in the Legislative Assembly or the Parliament, the political party A has asked its member to vote yes on a particular resolution or bill. And if an MP or MLA either votes no or abstains, then this MP or MLA is liable to be disqualified on grounds of defection under the 10th schedule. However, if this political party A condones the behavior of the MP or the MLA who has not voted as per the direction given by the political party A, then this MP or MLA would not be disqualified, and therefore the political party A can save its MP or MLA from being disqualified if it condones this behavior within 15 days. So now hopefully you've understood the two main features of the disqualification of MP and MLAs on grounds of defection under the 10th schedule. Now let us understand the difference of disqualification under 10th schedule for elected, nominated and independent members. Now an elected member of the House who was a candidate of a particular political party shall be disqualified if he joins any other political party after being elected to the House. So let's say a person called B has been elected to the Parliament as being a candidate of a political party called A. Now if this person joins any other political party called C during the period he is an elected member of the House, then he is liable for disqualification on grounds of defection under the 10th schedule. Now with regards to nominated members, now let's say a person A has been nominated to the parliament. Now this person A has 6 months to decide whether he wants to join a political party or to remain as an independent member. But if this nominated member A joins a political party after the expiry of 6 months, then this nominated member is liable for disqualification on grounds of defection under the 10th schedule. However, if this person A already belonged to a political party when he was nominated to the parliament, then he can be disqualified if he joins any other political party after being nominated to the parliament. Now the third aspect that you need to understand is with regards to independent members. Now an independent member would be disqualified if they joined a political party. Now let's say if a person A who did not belong to any political party is elected to the parliament or the state legislative assembly, this person would become liable to be disqualified on the grounds of defection under the 10th schedule if this person joins a political party after being elected. So now hopefully you've understood the basic differences in the disqualification of elected members, nominated members and independent members on grounds of defection under the 10th schedule. Now these differences are required to be understood so that you're able to eliminate options if it is asked in the prelims examination. Now another aspect that you need to understand with regards to disqualification under 10th schedule, the decision to disqualify is either taken by the chairman or the speaker of the house, and the decision of the chairman or the speaker would be final. So let's say a member A needs to be disqualified from the Rajya Sabha, then this decision would be taken by the chairman of the Rajya Sabha. Or if a person B is to be disqualified from the Lok Sabha on grounds of defection, then this decision would be taken by the speaker of the Lok Sabha. However, this decision of the speaker or the chairman for disqualification under the 10th schedule is open to judicial review. So if you take the context of the news in the article from page 1, it was the Madras High Court that upheld the disqualification of the legislatures in case of anti-defection under the 10th schedule. Apart from this, what you should also remember was that the 10th schedule was added to the Indian Constitution by the 52nd Amendment. So now hopefully you've understood the basic features with regards to disqualification under the 10th schedule. Now a question was asked in the prelims of 2014, which had asked which of the following schedules of the Constitution of India contains provision regarding anti-defection. Now you already know the correct answer to this question would be D, 10th schedule. Apart from this, a mains question was asked in GS paper 2 in 2013, which had asked the role of individual MP has diminished over the years, and as a result, healthy constructive debates on policy issues are not usually witnessed. How far can this be attributed to the anti-defection law, which was legislated but with a different intention? Now a question for practice is consider the following statements with regards to the 10th schedule, and the correct answer to this question would be given in the end section of this video. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now we have taken this article from page 8. Now what this article talks about is that the central government is reviewing the measures taken to curb fake news. Now fake news and measures required to tackle fake news was comprehensively covered in the Daily News Simplified of 16th of July. And what you can do is refer to this video in understanding various measures to tackle fake news from the perspective of GS paper 3 within the section security. Now, one thing that we want to help you with is making notes for the mains examination of 2019. Now, as most of you would currently be preparing for the prelims examination of 2019, what it does is that you do not have much time to prepare for the mains examination. So one thing that you can do is first take a subscription of the Hindu e-paper, and what this allows you to do is download the PDF of each article or editorial. And similarly, if you follow the Indian Express, now the Indian Express provides its e-paper freely on its website. Now what you can also do is download the various articles and editorials which are relevant for your UPSC mains examination. And what you can do is keep each article in a separate folder for your UPSC preparation. So like the article Think Small, which we had covered in today's DNS, you can place it in GS paper 3 within a separate folder titled Environment with a name which would highlight as to which paper it is from, its date of publication, and the main topic that it covers. And in this way, you would be able to save and segregate important topics that appear in the Hindu and the Indian Express, which you can later make notes on, read again, when preparing for the mains examination of 2019.
And now with this, we come to an end in the analysis of today's newspaper. Now we move on to the question for today.